Hello everyone, good afternoon, welcome. I'm Benjamin the director of AVA Gallery, and I am so thrilled to welcome you to this much anticipated talk by Christine Hawkins, Kit. In looking over your resume today, and of course we having tried for years to nail it down for an exhibition, I don't think there's any artist I know about who has been more involved in more arts organizations in the Upper Valley than you. I mean, it just blows my mind. You are so deeply entrenched in the art and culture here in the Upper Valley. It is absolutely amazing and beautiful, because that demonstrates such a commitment in so many levels. You Library Art Center in Newport, St. Gordon's, where you continue to be a trustee, the Claremont Opera House, where that was in the atrium there, the Wood Museum teaching from the Iliad, which is now Osher, showing at the Duckworth Museum. I mean, I can go on and on. The list is really long. It's spread all over the Upper Valley, and it's impressive, and it shows such a commitment to art. So we have had, as I said, we have really been trying for a long time to get you to show your work here, because you have participated in so many group exhibitions, and in particular your work has regularly been chosen for inclusion in our annual, or now biannual, during summer exhibition, and it is always pleasure. Your work always enhances any exhibition that you have been participating in. So we are particularly pleased to have this one person show here. Thank you, Kit. Margaret Jacobs, our exhibition coordinator, who hung the show and who worked with you in making it all possible, will say a few words, but thank you and welcome.
I'm Margaret Jacobs, AVA's exhibition coordinator. Christine Hawkins of Claremont, New Hampshire, received her Bachelor in Fine Arts from Boston University School of Art and a master's degree from Dartmouth College, Hanover, New Hampshire. Recent exhibitions and awards include an honorable mention at the Center for the Arts Juried Exhibition in Newport, New Hampshire, a Juror's Choice Award from the Thorne Art Gallery in Keene, New Hampshire, and an exhibition at the Adrian Duckworth Museum in Meriden, New Hampshire. Hawkins has led several courses for OSHA at Dartmouth, including Artists in Residence at the Hood Museum of Art, Cornish Colony Women Artists and Their Contemporaries, and Women Artists. She has taught art classes at many regional institutions, including Colby Sawyer College in New London, New Hampshire, and the New Hampshire Community Technical College in Claremont. Her work is influenced by her love of the landscape and the design elements she finds in nature. Please join me in welcoming Christine.
Incredibly. She's done such a fantastic job running this wonderful institution, which helps so many people, both young, middle-aged, and old, to become more versed in their creativity. And I know that Margaret has been an incredible addition to AVA. Her vision, when I arrived, I thought I was okay about it because I've hung so many shows at St. Gaudens for so many years. I thought, oh, I can do this. And then I thought, I can't do this. I can't do my own work. So I gave them all to Margaret, and she just deftly put them up in such a wonderful way that I just have to hand it to her. Thank you, Margaret, so much. I have a script here, and unfortunately, part of it was to be telling you about my background, but seeing that most of that was discussed already, I'll skip over some of it. But I did want to say that my experiences with both gallery work and teaching have been extremely important to me. And I love the work of children. I think that there's something makes me just, my spine just, because when children are working, it is like watching a plant grow. It's like they just go to art in such a natural way, and it is so incredibly important for them to have this. And that's what AVA provides a great deal. And I think the same thing about when you do an exhibition of somebody's work. You work hard on putting it together in such a way to make it pleasing for the artist as well as the onlookers. Has the same wonderful creative force behind it. I mean, it's so important to have people get their work out of the closet. And I know that, and it's so difficult because I think, I really am not going on my script. I think there's something about an artistic temperament which makes it difficult to expose yourself. You know, to put yourself out there, and even to talk about yourself is very difficult. It's just not, I may not be talking about every artist, obviously, but I am talking about myself, my own way of thinking, that I feel much more comfortable when I am private and not too exposed. So, but I'm glad this is here. Let's see. So my whole life has been, Bente was so kind to include all of that, but I really am a believer in exhibition and children, and I diverge a little bit because I also have gone through the Master Gardener course at UNH because I love gardening. I love growing things. It's the same thing as painting. You know, just to see how your garden is doing is very much like painting, or sculpture for that matter. So but I'm a terrible gardener. I don't know a thing about chemicals or, you know, the things I know what we should use and what we shouldn't use, but I don't know the organics well enough to really be a proficient gardener, but I love it anyway. I love getting my hands dirty. And that goes back to also making art, because you are always getting your hands dirty. And it's very important. And it's very important for children to be able to be encouraged to get in there and get messy and explore and get out there into nature. And in today's world, it's even more important than it was even a number of 10 or 15 years ago, where today children are watched so carefully that they're not being given that freedom to just explore and to make mistakes and to get dirty and to, you know, it's a terrible way for us to behave. Anyway, so years have flown by, and now I realize how my work has been influenced by the discipline of drawing. As a kid, I loved drawing, and I actually really liked comic books. Not comic books, excuse me, coloring books. I don't like comic books. My son liked comic books. I liked coloring books, and and it's so odd because I now would just defy that, you know, staying within the lines. But I can remember the smell of the crayons so vividly, of drawing and filling in those spaces and just loving it. So I'm not very good about saying anti-coloring book. I think there's a place for it too. But I would say that now my work for the last many years has been more obviously abstract. But I have a more constructivist methodology. After starting with the basic tenets of a grid, you know what a grid is, and then getting rid of it, and developing the composition from there. So you have to have a starting point. And I don't refer to specific objects when I'm working. I just start working. Sometimes it comes easily, and other times it's a terrible struggle. So I think but you have to start somewhere. So you just put your marks on the paper and you start, and then you build from there. One thing that I really adhere to is my love of color. And I don't know the true science of color so much as the reaction I get to color. And looking around at my work, I like yellow a lot. I really do. color has always been of interest to me, and I think I've managed to be sensitive to its power and its contribution to movement in the composition. And that's something I'd like to emphasize, is that movement is extremely important in a painting. Having the eye move around the composition, you learn that in basic design, but you also, it just becomes intuitive looking at a work and hoping that you can get your eye to move around it. Painting is a way to grasp a tangible reality for me. I think it's, I was speaking to the intern over here. She is going to do a double major in Scotland, St. Andrews, in psychology and in art history. And I said, oh, that's part of my talk. So the psychology of, or the tangible reality, because it really gives you something to hold on to and make you feel whole, you as an individual. I don't want to go into that too deeply because it's very scary, but it's very important, because that's why if you are at all, if you're working at all in art, you should keep it up, because it is very good for you. It's a healthy pursuit. The point being that I had said a little while ago that gardening also fills the same thing. I coupled the two things kind of together. To compose beautiful plant spaces is similar to painting, because in paintings you are making spaces as well. You're taking space into consideration all the time. The main objective of art is to create space, and space not compromised by decoration or illustration. When I'm working on a composition, it takes a certain amount of struggle, as I've referred to before I realize what direction to take. I'm not interested in trying to duplicate nature, but having developed a good sense of design through looking at nature. This was the major focus of my teaching, all the years that I taught, ages, from this age up to college age. Opening the eyes of the student to both natural beauty as well as exposing them to the history of art as a means to understand all of the world's history. And I think it's a shame that on what's that program on VPR? Not VPR. Yeah, VPR. Car Talk. They are funny, but they make very degrading comments about art historians. Like, they say, "Oh, I suppose you've been majoring in art history," or something. They should not do that. So anyway, as can be evidenced with some contemporary art, and I am very interested in contemporary art. I'm very, wow, it's exciting and sometimes it's baffling. And for the most part, it's just fun to see what people are doing with various materials. And these artists are responding to nature as well as in finding a form that unifies opposites. Historically, we can look at the work of Piet Mondrian. Are you up here to help me?
Yeah, because you're better.
Oh dear. I'll keep going. Anyway, Piet Mondrian, as most of you are familiar with. We will see an image, maybe. In 1933, which is, I hate to say, a long time ago, he succeeded in pushing to the very limit the distinction between line and color, as understood by both Cubism and by the entire tradition of painting, by means of the imagined mechanization of pictorial space. So maybe we'll see it in a minute. The traditional distinction between the elements of painting are suspended with the merging of line and color. And anyway, I'll just, maybe we can get to this in a minute. Also, another artist that I highly admire historically is Vasily Kandinsky. And because he used his anti-sculptural, do I push these buttons? So this is Mondrian. This is a early 1907 to 8 night landscape, which I think is extremely wonderful. The movement, the subdued colors, and yet the, I wish I had a pointer. The ability to look through the spaces here, and the tree trunks being just very sinuous and organic. This is one of his tree studies, which he did many of. I particularly love trees, so that's nice. And I think that's an apple tree. I think so. Again, movement, line, lovely spaces intertwined, created by the limbs. This one I also like very much. The color doesn't look quite right. It doesn't make any difference, does it? How do you change that? It should be darker. Well, we'll just have to. I don't think I can do it because I'll mess everything up. Can you make it darker? Okay, I'll go on. We can turn it on. It's all right. This is the last one. This is the last one. This is when he started in 1912 to develop his theory of disintegration of spatial relationships and not being a reporter of nature necessarily. This again, trees and blossom. This is his really pared down stage, 1933, where the real merging of line and color has happened. But this is a long time ago, but it doesn't matter. It's all very wonderful. And Kandinsky, we well know, he was very influenced or loved music. And it is reflected in his paintings, that there's this wonderful vibrancy and tonality and everything that goes into his abstract creations. He also loved color, and he embraced the modernist sensibility of internationalism, cross-references to theater and music, the sharp focus on primitive art, the total rejection of cultural hierarchies, the belief that much could be learned from children's art and from peasant crafts. And he was Russian, so there's wonderful peasant work. In anything that was done without thought of academic sanction, excuse me. So he was anti academia. So, let's see, I guess I'm not going to, okay, so 83 years later, we're in a more technological age, but artists have always been involved in technology. New tools, methods, and knowledge to extend their work. Whoops. Ancient Greeks used one word, tech, T-E-C-H-N-E, to stand for both art and technics. Technology and the new tools and methods have multiplied in the 21st century. Thus, the artist is altered by these, affecting the sensibilities and the form and purpose of art itself. In making art, one is exploring the rudimentary forces brought into being through graphic marks, dimensional relationships, juxtaposed colors, leaving to the individual's talent and temperament the terms in which he expresses himself. Visual coherence is more related to our neural, now Joe Saginaw, you'll know about this, right? Neural and psychophysiological being. And psychologists call it physiognomic, rather than to processes of intellectualization. This is acknowledged through feeling, and that's a big emphasis I would put on feeling. Optical forces are continuously operative, forces of attraction and repulsion, of expansion and contraction, according to the situation of shapes and colors presented to the eyes. Sight is more than the mere optical stimulation of the retina by haphazard light rays, which the mind concurrently organizes into spatial units. These must be perceived within the context in which they appear. Relationship is inescapable, and this makes the act of looking a dynamic experience. One must attend to the expressive character of the visual form. This means the quality of the sense of feeling that the visual object elicits. So don't forget the word feeling. It's very important about art, all of art. I thought I would include 3 women artists that I admire. They're not contemporary. One is Emily Carr, one is Georgia O'Keeffe, and the other is Frida Kahlo. The reason I've chosen to just talk a little bit about them is that, there's another people that's beside. These are Sonia Delano. These are back in the 30s. I know that's the Dark Ages, but still. Here's Frida Kahlo, their self-portrait. She is more specifically surrealistic in her approach with symbolism, and yet admirable in what, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with surrealism, I love it, but I just think it's very different from what I do personally, but it's lovely. All of these artists had to struggle to become recognized, as painting historically was dominated by men. These artists, one from Canada, one from the US, and one from Mexico, all shared a fundamental commonality: a professional stature, an attachment to place and nationality, an intense connection to nature, and a strong interest in indigenous cultures and non-European influences. Interestingly, they all found in nature a geography of the mythic and the unconscious, which they identified through form and symbol. That's funny, because my husband and I attended an OSHA class this past winter called Finding the Unconscious. I've forgotten the real title of it, but it was, what was his name?
Julian James.
Julian James. Anybody know that name? Julian James? Well, he was an author or a researcher at Harvard and I think MIT on studying the brain and how much of our actions are unconscious and how much we really know what, are directing everything that we do. A lot of our, it's an interesting study. The classes were hysterical actually, because we'd all be chattering away about our unconscious, about how much we really are unconscious a lot of the time. I'll show you these. Okay. These are the images. This is another one of Frida's self-portrait, 1940. This is her Tree of Hope. Can you see that? It's obvious. Very biographical, most of her work, about the struggles she encountered physically and mentally. This is her 2 Fridas, so she had sensibility of two different personalities. And this is Emily Carr. Is anybody here not familiar with Emily Carr's work? She's from British Columbia, or was, I should say. She's no longer living. But she was very caught up with the wonderful culture of the Northwest. And this is the raven, obviously, the big raven, and how much their myths are tied up in their culture. I mean, it's a very interesting study. And we have visited the wonderful museum in British Columbia in Vancouver, thank you, of anthropology and all of the artifacts. It's fabulous. I highly recommend going to British Columbia. It's a beautiful place to visit. And their art is fabulous. This is another one. I love the strength of her work, her directness and her strength. Here's is the big eagle watercolor. And Georgia O'Keeffe, who has gotten more attention than Emily Carr would say, but I should be careful about that. Depends on where you live. But Georgia O'Keeffe, you know, was married to Stieglitz, a great photographer, and was very fortunate to have him and backing her. But she was a very strong woman and very determined. Her flower series are just fabulous. Very organic work. All of the work is very organic. So, in conclusion, I have touched upon some of the influences upon my journey through art making, drawing, teaching, understanding the relationship between art and technology, which I did not light into. I guess I skipped that, but we all know about technology. Working with artists on their exhibitions, supporting the special place women have in the world of art, and lastly, knowing that art is wrapped up in feelings, and that is all good. Thank you for coming to AVA.
I'm sure there are some questions.
Does anybody have any questions? Yeah. Marie?
My question is, where do we see the artist go, since there is so much electronics and very realistic material that they are using, that sometimes as a looker on, you don't know, where am I? How do I relate to the newest techniques that they are using? I saw an exposition of a Chinese artist from Beijing, Mr. Bing. I forgot which big city, but it doesn't matter. It was in an old mill building, and he used old materials that the Chinese just tore away to build new buildings. So they were cranes, they were tools, shovels, whatever. And he managed to make it in a huge paradise bird in that building. And then I thought, my goodness, what is the next step?
Right. Well, if the question you have is about where is art going?
Yes, yes.
At Dartmouth, the master's program I was in, that was my thesis, was art and science. And are they not? It just fascinates me. I'm not saying that I know very much about where art is really going, but I do know that the two, art and science, working in art and working in science, are very, in a way, similar and yet different. So they have, but they're merging more today with technology. So there's much more reliance on everything to do with technology, whether it be the computer or, so the art that's being made, the installations, which are awesome and frightening, some of them, right? Because they're just too, I don't know, they're just way out there. But it's a very interesting time that we live in. I'm not sure that I can have a real answer for it, because it's just going to keep evolving.
Sometimes I have the feeling that it is made by aliens.
Made by aliens? Well, could be.
I wanted to ask you a question about your work, because you talk very beautifully about other artists. But about your color and about artists' preferences for color. It's so fascinating with these exhibitions that we have here right now, because Paul Gruler's paintings in the adjacent gallery, the one color he does not use is yellow.
That's what I was going to say.
You are pointing out that yellow in particular, and I mean it's fascinating. What is it?
I don't know. I just think of color. I think of color, as I said in my talk, is extremely important to me. I don't know the optics. I don't know the real science of color. I don't know it well enough to really, be versed in it. It's, as I keep saying, it's about a feeling. It's about how you register a feeling when you see certain colors. And for me, that's yellow. Because yellow is bright. I love the sun. I grew up in southern Florida, in Miami, half the time. Summer, no less. Terrible. But I love brightness, and I love sun, and I love what yellow can generate. Its warmth, its energy. So, and coupled with other colors, it works most of the time.
Some great proportions. I mean, you've got really wonderful structural proportions. I really love this one on the end, where I feel like I'm looking through into another space. They're absolutely beautiful. And even though I've got to go and do more work, when I finish up my work in the other room, I have to come over and...
Oh, thank you.
She's teaching children's classes.
Oh, you're teaching children's classes? Oh, great. Painting?
Yes, we've done a lot of painting.
Oh, good. Oh, I love it. I miss it. I really do.
Well, these are spectacular.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I didn't answer Bente, but
But I mean, I have the point that I find it so utterly fascinating.
The two
here one artist who absolutely every other color but yellow.
Yeah, that's true. I just, yeah.
So, I'm not a visual artist, so could you talk a little bit, just take one painting, you said you started with a grid.
Pretty much.
All right. Do you
Not
start
this,
with color?
that one I did, you can see that.
Right.
And these are
Right.
more grid-like
Like
in a
this.
sense.
I can see the grid.
Spatial.
Do you start with a particular color, or do you choose some colors?
No, I really am kind of an unfocused painter.
Okay.
I mean, I don't have a prescription. I've tried to do a sketch.
Right.
My little critique group that's sitting here, some of them. I've tried using a little sketch and then enlarging it, and it never feels right.
But you are an observer of nature. You are an observer
Yes,
of nature.
I am. I've seen, I record that, and as I said earlier, the unconscious is there and it comes out. And every time, we take hikes every day with our dog, and I always admire, oh my God, look at that. It's just amazing what we have at our disposal, just so easily. I was looking at these little grasses yesterday. I guess it was yesterday. And note the little grasses on the side of the road. They have these little filaments coming up that are yellow, little yellow ends to it. It's just intriguing to me what nature does. How, and seeds, and how do seeds make these gorgeous things? I mean, it's a miracle. It is.
And this is very architectural.
Yeah, my father was an architect.
Okay.
And he was very strict about, well, I have to say, I rebelled against my father to some degree because...
But not all the way.
No. He kept saying, Kit, where's your perspective? Have you not got your perspective? And I said, oh, phooey. I don't like perspective. Joe?
Yeah, one of the things I really like about these paintings is that they're sort of an attempt to meld. You start off with this sort of the intellectual. You put a grid in. It's all very, firm. And then you sort of pull it apart. Then you sort of the color is the emotion and the intellect. Sort of I think of Mondrian, why you admire so much, that somehow he was both very intellectual, but in those paintings you showed, he was sort of taking it all apart.
Exactly.
Right, and somehow sort of an attempt to integrate those. That's one, and that's beautiful. And one of the other things that we were talking about, the movement, you know, like in your paintings, and the ones that like that yellow one over there, I found myself sort of like if you were to jump into the painting and take a walk through the painting with your eyes, right, you'd sort of encounter really interesting transitions. You know, it'd be like taking a walk. Seeing sort of interesting things that take you places or abrupt transitions. And I sort of find that really appealing. And also, for example, this one at the end, it's sort of because of the level of abstraction, that to me is like figurative.
It's like?
Figurative in some way. In other words, it's not a landscape, it's not figure, it's not still life, it's all of the above. But in the one on the end, that's what, you know, I sort of see more figure in some of that, which is sort of nice about the level of abstraction that you put out there where people respond, you know, you can respond. I don't know how you respond to that or what your associations are to it, but that, you know, I find myself having different reactions to different paintings, you know, like that.
Well, I did a lot of figure drawing with Adrian Duckworth, you know, for a number of years until I rebelled. He was just being too much of an authority figure. I couldn't comply any longer. That's when I started doing abstract work. I just said, enough is enough.
Have you always worked on paper?
Mm-hmm. Pretty much, except my earlier work when I was much younger.
Well, in reference to that one, it seems to me that the texture makes it seem like soft and like having roundness or that kind of dimension soft. And that's partly because of your medium, right?
I use an oil stick. I should talk about
and
it.
so you can talk about that. It
Yeah.
doesn't run so much as it can almost mold it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's much more of a. It's a combination of drawing.
Yes.
And I use my hands a lot too. You know, I get in there.
You make a finger paint. Oh yes.
So I mean, you can't give up your love of the figure. You know, it's the whole organic. You know, the spaces of arms. You know, the space in negative and positive spaces, which you know, it all gets in there somewhere. You know, through schooling and whatever. So it's all good.
Hi. I'm sorry I was a little late. I have looked at the show several times since it went up, and I'm liking your work a lot. For some reason, I'm drawn more to the rectangle than the curvilinear ones. And so two questions really. One, when you say you start with a grid, are you literally drawing a grid that's been obliterated or removed, or are you imagining it as a grid?
In some you can see it more specific, like this one looks more grid-like. I think that's the only, and these littler ones are much more grid-like. These were done, I think, you know, there's a big difference between working in the winter and in the summer. You know, the winter you get very dry. You get very, I don't know, I don't like the winter anymore. And I think it's just that when it's just, you stay within parameters more when you're cold. But that's neither here nor there, but that's what I really think. Some of the work is tighter because of, I think it's a seasonal thing. I really do. I think the season really does affect me.
What I think is interesting after listening to you, because we see Mondrian, you showed us him going from representational to an ultimate abstraction.
Right.
Or when I was looking at your work, I was particularly over here, I was immediately thinking of Sheila, Charles Sheila.
Yeah. Oh, Sheila. Right.
Yeah. And so your work to me looks like you have abstracted an object that you were studying, even though you explain it as almost non-objective, right?
Right. I do love Sheila's work.
Yeah.
He's very architectural. You know,
well,
he's a little.
Your comment about your father.
Yeah.
That's why.
Well, Dad was very, as I said, strict and very neat. I'm not. So he was just very regular, he was a Navy guy, and he had everything, his house was built, he went to Harvard and he had the Bauhaus influence.
Yeah.
And so everything was where it should be, and oh, forget it if you were one of these kids who didn't put things back where they should be. It was not good. So my daughter was saying that the other day to me. She said, well, Grandpa it was great, because you go into his workshop and all of his tools had lines around them so that he knew that place where that screwdriver or that paintbrush belonged. She said, that was great. I wish I was married to a man like that. So, yeah. So,
These are very, these and a couple of the small ones are very architectural.
right.
But they look like they get almost representational.
Right. Nobody's asked me about my titles.
About your,
Titles.
I found it intriguing.
Well, I'm not going to disclose how I name my work. Yeah, I have a method.
Please do.
Okay. Well, I look in the dictionary. And I have a feeling about the work, and I find a word interesting, because there was one of the books that I referred to a lot over the years spoke about how the development of language is very specifically different from the development of these other psychoneural processes, the development of language. But yet, language, I'm not a language person, so I'm not sure how I have trouble with words a lot. But I do find this kind of a wonderful process to go through. I love looking up words. I love saying, oh my God, I didn't know about that word. So it's, that's basically what I do. So, anybody else?
Is there any chronology in terms of when you've done them?
I think these are the more recent. They were this winter. And that's this winter, those are this winter.
What was the question? Sorry.
Chronology. And these two were earlier, like last, I think, a year or so ago, more than a year ago.
But all of the works are within a year's time.
Right.
That I didn't realize.
Okay, right. But and I guess all artists, they don't really change their stripes. They kind of keep, something always is there that's repeated. It's, it's hard to get away from. So, I don't know. But I'm just eager to work some more. My grandchildren are going to be going to a art camp at Arrowhead in Claremont for a week this summer, which I'm
with me,
You're going to be there?
I'm the teacher.
You are?
Yes.
Oh, God. I'm going to meet you.
Which week?
The 8th through the, what is it called? 8th through the,
13th through 17th.
oh,
I
13th.
have no idea what we're doing that week. Do you remember?
Oh, yeah, it's art history. You're going to be bringing art history in. I can't tell you specifically which periods, but you...
I'll have to go read it.
Well, they
I don't remember what I
spoke,
wrote exactly.
they spoke very highly of you. I did a real, investigation. I said, I have to know.
Oh, and Kid would like it if it were longer than 2 hours a day.
It is.
Well,
It's
actually,
4.
Oh, it is 4?
It's
there
4.
are see, the weeks that I'm here, it's 2 hours in the morning, and then I come here in the afternoon. And the weeks that I am not here, it's a 4-hour camp. And basically the difference is they go swimming on 4-hour weeks.
Oh, they do?
Yes. They may. I think they're going to go swimming tomorrow, but they'll do more of it on the weeks, because...
But that takes them outside, that's what you...
Exactly. No, and my daughter is tickled to death that I'm taking 2 of her 3 children. She says, Mom, don't worry, 4 hours is not too long. Take them. So that's great.
20 hours.
I'm starting to make a list, another list, what we're going to do for fun. Hiking, biking.
We do some of that
Do
too.
you bring your sketchbook along?
Yeah, I do. When I go down to the river, I love the river. I was just mad at myself the other day, because where was I? Oh, I went over to Windsor to the Runnymede. Have you ever been to Runnymede? It's just a lovely walk with the pond. And a couple of years ago, I did a number of sketches there, and I didn't have my sketchbook with me, and I was so upset because it was so beautiful with the mountain, and then the water, and then all of these lilies. What are they? No, they're not lilies. What are they?
Water lilies.
Water lilies, right.
Oh,
Just covering this whole thing. This whole part of it was all, which is not a good sign.
oh, really?
It means there's mud underneath. So our dog went in to the mud. Yeah.
There we
She
go.
had a ball.
Not such a good sign.
Yeah, she had such a good time. So, anybody else?
You know, I do see some things in the paintings, but I love not really knowing. I love looking at it and almost seeing a reflection or almost seeing, you know, a trail down the road or you know, but not. And I really admire people who do this wonderful abstract work, and they're beautiful.
Thank you very much. It'd be much easier not to do abstract, I tell you.
Really?
Well, I think so.
It's my favorite
Joe, do you
kind
think
of art,
that
but I
that's
don't do it.
true? Yeah. Do you think abstract?
Unless
or-
I'm weaving.
Your work
I
tends to
don't know. I don't know. Personally, I think they're all hard to do.
be. Yeah. They are hard. It is hard. It's like, you know, an author sitting down to a blank piece of paper. It's the same thing. It's just unbelievable feeling. Like, whoo, where am I going to go with this?
Is there one here that feels particularly personal? I mean, that you are emotionally drawn to more than any other?
Well, I would say there's more than one. I would say that one over there, I really, something
little one at
about
the end?
the little one. I just, that is, I think the title is
Sanctuary.
Sanctuary.
Sanctuary, right.
Uh,
So that I like a lot, and this one here. And these two and that one over there.
yeah. Okay.
Your favorite work.
Exactly. You have to write.
Thank you all for
Thank you so much.
Thank you.